Pleasure to my name is Stephen Thane, and I don't represent anyone, but I became aware of this concept called the parent-supported education model that I thought would be really important for this committee to understand. And so the way the legislative process works is people really don't talk to you unless you write a bill, so that's what I did. And so I appreciate this hearing and this opportunity to speak. So my vision for education is a partnership between parents and teachers that collaborate to provide individualized education. Rather than a one-size-fits-all curriculum, the system should offer diverse options that align with students' needs and parents' values. By strengthening cooperation and respecting each other's roles, we can create an environment where every child thrives, and the American experiment in limited government can continue, because we haven't had a government like ours for just a couple of centuries. It's quite unique. So it's an honor to stand here before you today. It really is. I know legislators tend to be risk adverse, so I appreciate your willingness to ask questions, but it is amazing the impact that the decisions you make have on hundreds of thousands of lives. There's 360,000 school-aged children in Idaho, about 113,000 in Idaho public schools. So I stand here humbly to share my thoughts, coupled with the realization that decisions ripple through time either positively or negatively. And there are quite a few people, parents, students, and teachers that are engaged in this model already. And I hope I can share some of the thoughts that they might have, the feelings and why they support it. First of all, I want to pull up a slideshow. I only have one slide, so don't get too excited about slideshows. I have to turn it on. Oh, no. Let's see.
Not getting any video today.
Oh, there it is. I got it. And then we'll go to... Okay. Sorry for the delay. So I was surprised at how many students are already engaged in different kinds of choice. So before you have either a hard copy or you have this. There's about 357,000 total school-age kids in the state of Idaho. It's a little hard to really tell for sure, but I tried to get that from the census data. The total number of students in public schools is about 313,000. The total brick and mortar traditional public school students are 251,000. But then we get into some of the options that parents have already chosen. Brick and mortar charter school students, a little over 26,000. Virtual charter school students, about 5,800. The PSIMS model that we're going to talk about more today, around 11,000, which I've been able to gather by talking to people. There might be more, I'm not really sure, but about 11,000. There's almost 10,000 alternative school students, almost 9,000 magnet school students, around 27,000 homeschool students, and private school students make up just shy of 17,000. So the total number is 105,000 are doing something different than a traditional brick and mortar neighborhood school. And I think this is important for a couple of reasons. One, there's tipping points. When you get to a certain point, change is inevitable. Change is going to happen. And one reason I'm presenting this PSIMS bill, Senate Bill 1086, or 1068, is the traditional brick and mortar schools need some added flexibility if they're going to compete in this new landscape. So Many years ago, some brave homeschooling parents began a movement where they wanted more choices for curriculum. We're now at a point where more and more non-homeschool parents are demanding individualized situations, settings, and curriculum for their children. The real question is if we're going to allow traditional public schools to have flexibility to compete in this new marketplace or not. And if so, what would this look like? That's really the question. If not, I'm afraid what will happen is traditional public schools will continue to lose students, especially if students start migrating to private schools. And if they do better there, there'll be more and more pressure to fund more of these private school options than currently is the case. So this bill that I'm presenting provides 4 areas of flexibility. If you decide to pass the bill or not, I hope this discussion highlights the underlying reality that there's more competition than ever, and that this option should be supported since there are already 11,000 students participating in it. First, I need to say something about the role of parents. One of the criticisms of this bill and the PSIMS model is that it pays parents. In reality, this characterization is inaccurate. Parents are not being paid a wage like a public school teacher or a mechanic or an accountant for the work that they do. Instead, they're given access to an expense account to support their child's education. More importantly, this wording undermines the fundamental partnership between parents and teachers, suggesting an unnecessary divide rather than recognizing them as co-contributors to a child's learning and success. This statement dismisses the vital role of parents, implying that they are secondary in a child's education. In reality, parents influence their children far more than the time spent in the classroom. Teachers teach approximately 1,260 hours per year. That's about 14% of a child's time, while parents are responsible for their children the remaining 86% of the hours of the year. Beyond academics, parents are also responsible for housing and meeting countless other essential needs. Student success also isn't about race or income levels. It's about parents knowing how to navigate the system. Families who understand the education system and were successful in it, and also the job market after they get out of school, make wiser choices for their kids. To close this gap, which I think is one of the key problems, is if you look at the NAP data and AEP data, what you're finding is education levels are staying fairly level, but what it's hiding is that students that are doing well are doing better and students that are struggling are doing worse. There's an increasing divide. So this divide, I think, is really critical, and this PSIMS approach has a way to reach out to parents to partner with them in the education process. The key to a better education, I believe, starts at home. To meet this needs, schools need flexibility, as I've mentioned before. So what is the PSIMS model, or PSIMS system? Jen Ghostry, who runs the Overture Learning, which is a third-party provider serving 3,000 students in Idaho in 5 school districts, answered this question. I'd like to read a couple of things that she said. How is parent-supported instruction different from homeschooling? She said, parents in Idaho have the freedom to educate their children in any way they desire. The needs of each family and student is unique. Educational choices may include homeschool, private school, charter school, public school, and more. Parents who homeschool in Idaho have no accountability measures, including testing. Students involved in the parent-supported instruction model outlined in Senate Bill 1068 are not homeschool students. These students are enrolled in an online or virtual school that is part of the public or charter school. They are students of a licensed teacher who oversees their education, with the parent typically providing most of the day-to-day instruction. These students are held to public school requirements such as testing and standards-based instruction. So why parents support this? Why parents support instruction? She goes on to say, the ideal formula for student success is parent, teacher, and student working together to create a custom learning pathway. Parent-supported instruction gives parents who know their students best a voice choosing curriculum, learning methods, and programs that best meets the needs of the individual student, and then the flexibility to facilitate such instruction. Parent-supported instruction within the school system provides students with the support of a licensed teacher to help them guide their learning and keeps parents and students involved in public schools and connected to a larger community of learners. This can make for an easier transition if a student decides to attend brick and mortar full-time in the future. The framework for home online learning is provided to parents and students along with the accountability measures. Regular guidance and support is provided by the teachers. So here's some of these, Janet Cox in particular, who's with us today, who is one of these third-party providers, sent out a questionnaire to some of her parents, and she had quite a few responses. In fact, she has, I think, 211 responses, which we opted not to send to you. You can read them if you want. We brought them with you, but we'll summarize them because I know your email boxes get really full. But these parents were very interested in sharing their opinion on the matter, and hopefully we can do a good job expressing what they had to say. So why do parents like the PSIMS model? Well, one, many are engaged parents who do not fully trust the public school system. However, they understand that their children need more than what they're able to provide at home. Two, because those parents are very involved, they take a hands-on approach, and they want some level of direct involvement that's not always easy to do. It's not easy to do in a traditional public school environment at this time. Third reason, many of these parents want to choose curriculum for their own children. They might not trust the history, science, math, or literature selections being offered in public schools. And four, another reason these parents choose this model is they don't like the social environment in public schools. These parents are also not satisfied with academic results of traditional public schools, so they're looking for something better for their kids. Now, you might disagree with their decisions or with their reasoning. However, it is their feelings and it's their reasoning, and they're acting upon it. And so we need to respond to it. Parents with these feelings and opinions exist in every school district in the state. It is very common. I believe school districts either have a choice to cater to these desires or lose them completely. One of the things that was pointed out, we asked them what their second choice would be. Many of them said they would homeschool. They wouldn't send them back to public school. And many of them can't afford a private school. So there's two approaches to solving a problem. If in fact NAEP is correct and public education is struggling, even though Idaho is doing fairly well compared to the nation, it's really quite close to most of the states in the nation. And about half the students aren't being served very well in public education. That's a hard thing to say, but it's still true. So one way to solve this problem is the institutional approach. This perspective views the issue as a problem with the institution, and we need to do something institutionally. Now, there's some problems with that. I don't think it's working, for one. That's the biggest problem. It tends to be top down, so it cuts parents out of the system. It tends to be more one size fits all. So just because this hasn't been working very well in the past, in my opinion, I think we need to try something different. And that is the parent-centered approach, where we allow parents to make key decisions. They're the decision makers in their kids' education. Given that parental involvement is the most reliable predictor of student success, the best way to improve education very well may be giving some real decision making to these parents, such as choosing the curriculum they want for their kids. So why does 1068 matter? Well, there's 11,000 students already doing it. So you might say, well, we don't really need to pass the bill. But if we were to pass the bill, what I would like to see is more schools adopting this model for those parents that want it. So right now we have 6 that are currently using, that I'm aware of, currently using this model. We do have a lot of virtual schools. Boise, almost every school district has virtual schools. But this is a model that appeals to a lot of people. Quite often in the virtual schools, you don't get to choose the curriculum. So encouraging more school districts to do this, if we're to pass the bill and basically give a green light to the rest of the school districts, hey, this is something we support. I think it works better when this model is done by a local school district, where you can have contact with teachers that are close to you. You can even go to the brick and mortar school for some things rather than a faraway school district. So I'd like to read a couple of quotes from an article in the Idaho Ed News. It's still on the front page, so you can find it if you want. It's actually about the Bondry County School District. So I'm just going to read a couple of passages from it. They interviewed Superintendent Jan Bayer, and the district is one of a handful that use Overture, an Idaho-based online school-for-profit platform. And Overture only works within the state of Idaho. You have some others like Braintree or I forget all their names right now. But they're in other states also. In fact, there are 10 other states using this model, including Hawaii and Oklahoma and quite a variety of states. So here's said, if I got all the quotes, there are 100 students enrolled in the program, with all but 2 in Boundary County, Bayer said. And the article went on to say, less than 10% of those 100 students this year were current school district students who switched to online. Most, 10% of, 90%, so 90 students, most were homeschoolers or in another online school and transferred, Bayer said. They like the idea that it's local and that they actually have a teacher they can go and see if they need additional support. And then the 2 other quotes. With the district's levy and bond having failed in November, Bayer hopes that an expansion could be a safety net for staff if a second attempt to pass the levy fails in May. At least a few of the 9 people Bayer expects to lay off if the levy fails could move to working for the online school, she said. And the last quote. In Boundary County, 61.3% of test takers at the online school were reading at grade level this fall. That's slightly up from the statewide numbers of nearly 60% at grade level. The connection Overture students maintain with their school district makes transitioning back to brick and mortar school easier, Goostree says. To me, this raises a couple of questions, because their math scores are not as good as their, but I'm interested. I mean, if it was me asking questions, and we have a couple of experts behind me, are they seeing improvements in their math scores, and what do they see going forward? Because if this system did as well or better than the traditional public school, there wouldn't be any question at all that we ought to move ahead with this model. And I think they're making strides. So at this time, I'd like to go over the bill, and I appreciate your willingness to let me stand up here and visit with you. And then I'll stand for some questions. So 33-16-37, the last sentence in A. So it's on page 1. And I'm going to go over the 4 or 5 flexibilities and decision-making points that make this different from a traditional brick and mortar school. The curriculum selected by a parent under this section is exempted from sections 33.11.18 and 33.5.12a Idaho Code. So it doesn't need to go through the curriculum adoption process. They still have to teach the state standards, but it doesn't have to go through the curriculum adoption process. So if they want to choose a homeschool curriculum for math, you don't have to put the school district through that whole process of adopting for just a few parents. And then subsection G, parent support instruction model means an instruction model in which a sponsoring school district assigns teachers to work with parents who are providing some or all instruction to their eligible children. So this clearly lines out that we are willing to partner with, as a state of Idaho, with the regular school districts or teachers working with parents to provide instruction. I think that's an important point. Now on page 2, subsection 3, the amount of funds allocated to each education savings account for students participating, and it goes on. These things are set at district policy. As far as signing up for them, the program, but starting with sponsoring school districts, and on my copy it's line 20, hopefully that's the same on yours. Sponsoring school districts, and this is on subsection 3 on page 2, may increase the pupil-teacher ratio for students participating in the parent-supported instruction model beyond state-mandated levels as long as students are performing at or above the same level as the average student, public school student, statewide not participating in the parent-supported instruction model. So it gives some flexibility to school districts to have some, which charter schools have already. And then the last point is on the last page, subsection 6. The provisions of section 33.5.12d, 3, and 4, which is a self-directed learner, apply to students participating in a parent-supported instruction model pursuant to this section if such student is at or above grade level based upon, and it gives a choice of a couple of different assessments. So that gives some flexibility on time, as time in the classroom or time spent teaching. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would stand for questions.
Thank you. Senator Wardingle King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Thane, for being here. We've talked, and I have a few concerns about this bill. I guess I'd like to start with maybe the statement of purpose where it says this bill also limits the ability of the Idaho State Department of Education to regulate this program or model. Can you just talk to me about the thinking behind that?
Senator Thane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Wardingle King. Yes, the concern when you have a new idea and a bureaucracy gets a hold of it is they try to regulate it out of existence.
Senator Wardingle King.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was pretty short, Senator Thane. I was expecting a little more, I guess. I also, I have a couple more questions, and then I may take a break for a minute and regroup. But another thing that concerns me, it's on page 1 of the bill, and it says eligible expenses means expenses relating to education. That's a pretty big, that could be almost anything, including but not limited to the cost of the alternative curriculum and core subjects required by the state, education supplies, and tutoring. So a field trip to Washington, D.C., educational expense?
Senator Thane.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Wardingle King, may I defer to someone who's actually working in a school district as a third-party provider that does educational expenses and how they do it?
Sure.
Because I think it'd be more informative. Janet?
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Janet Cox, and I am the Director of Student Services with Idaho Home Learning Academy. I work with the partner Home Ed 360 specifically, and also have 7 of my own children enrolled in their program. So I work with a team who reviews and approves the education supplies that students have requested or that parents are interested in. So we have worked with the district to create policies of what would be allowed, and then we review things based on that criteria. So your trip to Washington, D.C., for example, is specifically on the list of not allowed reimbursable expenses, any travel expenses, hotel expenses, those type of things. Now, admission to a museum in Washington, D.C. would be approved when we can show that that ties back to student learning and student standards. Part of Idaho Home Learning Academy's mission or motto is that learning happens anytime, anywhere. So while the travel and trip expenses shouldn't be part of a student's education needs, visiting that museum or specific learning activity would be considered. Now, Washington, D.C. is a great example of a place that you can visit and do most things very inexpensive or free. My own children, we took a trip this last spring during the school year, and I took my kids back to Washington, D.C. We toured the White House. We toured a lot of the Smithsonian buildings, and my kids learned so much from that experience that this year, as we're learning about national parks, it's, oh, I've been there. I know that. We're learning about the President Trump and watching his inauguration speech. My daughter says, we've been there before. I know where that's at. I have a picture of me in that room. She's first grade, and she already has a connection because of that experience. Now, most of our families don't spend most of their funds or even any of their funds on that type of experience. Most of our families spend their funds on curriculum and resources, meaning traditional homeschool, what you would consider textbooks type materials, books, extracurricular things like a PE, the students are participating in soccer or going to the YMCA, things like music lessons or enrichment activities like that, and then other educational things, pencils, notebooks, that type of thing. That's the majority of what we see come across. Families do have the option to fill out a special request if they want to do something that is a little more expensive or a little different from what fits in that traditional box. And at that point, my team reaches out to their teacher, make sure the student's in good standing, sees how the student's doing academically, and then we can look at approving something that might fit a specific standard somehow differently. An example of that would be a family that just got approved to buy a $77 incubator to hatch chicks as part of their life science. So that would be one of the more off things. I'm happy to answer any other questions if you have specifics as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that information. How about computers and internet and things like that? Is that considered appropriate? Or karate lessons or, something every week like ballet?
Yes, those extracurricular PE activities like karate, ballet, those would be included. As far as computers and technology, students are allowed to get 1 computer, 1 tablet per year, and we stipulate that those must be what we call student quality. So generally anything over $600 requires that special request form, and a family needs to explain why their student needs a higher quality computer. Have we approved computers over 600? Yes. I have an 8th grade student, for example, who is working on drafting and some of that type of things that needed a more expensive computer and a special piece that goes with it to be able to do the drafting. We approved that for that student for that specific purpose.
Just a little, just maybe 1 or 2 more, sorry. So internet would be included, and you said a computer or device per year?
That's the maximum that they can get a laptop or a device per year for a student. Most families don't. Most families, I would say on average, our families are replacing their devices every 3 to 4 years, and usually those devices are being used by multiple children. Internet is an approved expense. With the way the Empowering Parents Grant changed their policies this last year, we do also have a warning that parents cannot get reimbursed for their internet if they have submitted that for Empowering Parents Grant. We have no way to confirm that or verify that with the way the grant is set up. So it is an on your honor thing, but we specifically tell parents that they can't double dip in the 2 different funds. They can submit their internet to us, but not if they're submitting it to Empowering Parents Grant.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just ask one more at this point. I saw where on that same page it says school district assigns teachers to work with parents who are providing some or all instruction to their eligible children. Having been a classroom teacher, trying to make up work or work with children who have missed days of school is very, very difficult. And I also saw on page 3 where it says that the district basically provides sponsoring school district transportation, playground facilities, after-school activities, special education, instruction in subjects other than those taught in parent-supported instructional model, or any other services or issues identified. That's a pretty long list, and to me, it seems like really when a child's absent, the costs go on, the teacher's still there working with other children, the lights are on, the heat's on, all the buses run. So, basically there's very few expenses that go away when somebody's absent, and yet it looks like the responsibility is still on the teacher to make sure this child's progressing. And that's pretty frightening to me if I don't get to see them every day.
Thank you.
Can I respond? Okay.
Sure.
I'll respond to the first part of your question and have Senator Thane respond to the second question. So our teachers get to know, they're assigned by family, not by individual grade levels. And so our teachers get to know their students. And if a student doesn't turn in our work, our teachers don't just sit idly by and hope that something happens. Our teachers reach out, they follow up. There is a lot of safety nets built in of following up with this family and with this student. There are times that I've had a very frank conversation with the family that this may not be the best educational fit for you, and here's why, and here's your other options, or how can we better support you? But most of the time, I would say by the time a student is third grade especially, we can start working with that student with online curriculum resources to help that student have independent resources to continue to learn. And we can work with that parent to meet their needs in their home situation with some of the amazing curriculum resources out there. So it's no longer that you just have a textbook and the student's supposed to read the questions and answer the questions, or a teacher standing up and lecturing. We're moving as a world to more of a flipped education model where the students have amazing resources online that they can learn from, and then they can go to that teacher or that parent with their questions or to get clarification. Our students have the opportunity to participate in a Zoom discussion activity with their teachers each week, where it's cross-curricular, where they're working on information from the mini lessons and interacting with their peers. They have that interaction with the teacher. And we do, I feel, do a very good job following up with students who are absent or not participating in getting them involved. And I'll let Senator Thane talk about that last section of his bill.
Thank you, Senator Lent, Senator Ward King. So that last question had to do with use of the sponsoring school districts, transportation, and so forth. If you go back to section 5, it talks about the application process, and that application is set in by the local school district. One of the reasons, like it says, the name and grade level of the student is A, B is proof that they're an eligible student, C, their curriculum they're using, and C, which is on the last page, details regarding a student's need for use of the sponsoring school districts, whatever, all those. The reason for that is so school districts can see the level of responsibility that parents are taking. And if the parent is planning on having the school do quite a bit, well, they're not going to give them a very large, so they can adjust their education savings account accordingly. That's why that's in there. So they have a negotiation of how much the school district is going to do and how much the parent's going to do.
Thank you. Maybe just a comment. I think if you've been in a classroom lately, there's very few times that a teacher just stands up there and lectures. That's not happening. It's very engaging. If you go to a classroom, I've been to many in the last year, and they're very engaging and they're interactive, and students have individual projects going, but I guess I'm concerned about Zoom being the best way for kids to connect and with other children and with teachers. And I'm worried about, I know that you said this is not paying parents to educate their children, but I'm worried we're reimbursing parents so that their children can stay home. And that bothers me. I love parent engagement. It's what's magical in a classroom. But I think kids need to be in public school if we're going to use taxpayer dollars. So thank you.
Thank you. Senator Thane, we do have a number of people who'd like to testify. We're going to be short on time. We have to be done here about 5 to 4, so
Okay.
or thereabouts. First up, we have Mary Ellen Norris. Please introduce yourself.
Mr. Chair and members of the Senate Education Committee, my name is Mary Ellen Nurse. My husband Jim Nurse and I live here in District 17 in Boise. I'm representing myself and my husband and urge your support of Senate Bill 1068, Parent-Supported Instruction. Jim and I were never blessed with children, so I can't say that we have firsthand experience as parent educators. However, I do have a doctoral degree in education from the University of Memphis. Technically, I'm Dr. Nurse. And so education and topics like this are very dear to me. Jim and I laud parents who recognize their role as the first educators of their children. Parents can best determine the educational delivery protocol that meets their children's academic, social, and emotional needs, and also fits with the values of the family. Any support or partnerships that our dedicated Idaho Public Schools can give or have with parent educators will reap fruit in years to come. For example, Google the term parental involvement and student success and see the number of articles that come up in support of that topic there. So for these reasons, Jim and I urge support of Senate Bill 1068, Parent-Supported Instruction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Okay, in order, the next three, Lisa Hewitt, Laura Forrest, and Darren Forrest, in order.
Hi, my name is Lisa Huddle, and I live in Meridian. I am representing myself as a parent and also, more importantly, as a teacher for one of these parent-supported education programs. I heard some really good points being made and questions being raised about concerns with public school versus this program model, and I would like to talk to those a little bit. As a teacher, I have firsthand experience in a brick and mortar classroom. I've been an educator since 1991. I was a part of another state Senate bill program that worked on restructuring education throughout the state. And I know how important it is to have parents involved and have a relationship with families. In this parent-supported education model, we are still operating as a public school program. So the concerns about mismanagement of funds and what happens when a person is sick along those lines, those are not really something that is realized in a program like this. We are monitored the same way any other public school is. The difference being our partnership with families is our primary role when we are working with families. We know the standards as teachers. We know different strategies that work for children, and we're in a unique opportunity to offer differentiation to students at the highest of levels, at the lowest of levels, and socialization opportunities that parents choose or choose not to participate in. In our program, Home Ed 360, our meetings are not all over Zoom. We offer in-person learning days where we get together for specific educational content, standard-based learning. And during those days, children show up as families with the same homeroom teacher and 2 other homerooms from a region. They get to know the same children at each one of those events. They interact with the teacher. And I will tell you, the relationships and the cooperation between parent and student and teacher is stronger than anything I saw when I was in a brick and mortar classroom. I think choice is what's important. And I think this is a public education choice that does not cost the taxpayer extra and serves families in a way that we can't do in a brick and mortar school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Senator Cook has a question if you'd like to come back for a second. Senator Cook?
I'm passionate about it, so go ahead, ask.
It's wonderful. So I want to follow the money.
Yes.
How do you get paid? You get paid by the parents? You get paid by the district? Is the district
The
paying the
school
parents?
district, I am basically dual employed, if you want to look at it that way. Our school district charter program is the one that hires me. Idaho Home Learning Academy hired me. But that employment is also in partner with whoever the school, our Home Ed 360, Janet Cox is the person I report to. So I serve both. It's a little complicated. My paycheck comes from the state of Idaho through Home Ed, or through Idaho Home Learning Academy.
Follow up?
Oh,
What is Home Ed's 360?
That is one of the partner programs that works with the public school district, Idaho Home Learning Academy. So if you think of how much training it would take to have a regular public school district divert funds in order to train teachers to do this type of a program. Instead, what they have done is they have said, we're working in this public school as a program, but the parents have opted to go with this educational model. And instead of using an adopted curriculum, our teachers are kind of like the curriculum in that we're there to coach families so that they know what is expected at grade levels, where there's a resource for them when they aren't sure how to teach a certain topic. We offer resources, we offer instruction, we offer the same, basically anything you would see in a traditional brick and
Who's
mortar
speaking
classroom
for public
is available
education
to
here?
their families.
So far, I haven't seen
Just
anybody
on their terms.
come to the
We are
podium
not
and
telling
speak for
them what
public
they need to
education.
learn and how they're going to
This is
learn it.
all
where
Yeah.
private.
we have a lot of people.
Yep,
that come
I'm
in.
fine.
And this thing has got to end at 4 o'clock.
The parents aren't paying you. The money's coming from the district. The ESA, then that we've spoke about in here, is just for extra expenses, but that expense is not going to you. Is that correct?
Those expenses do not go to me. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
sure, thank you.
Senator Cook, or Senator Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask a question of the.
Sure. Would you mind another question? But please try to keep it short if you can.
I will, that's really hard for me, but go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. What is the amount of the education savings account?
I believe each student gets, it changed a little bit this year, but I want to say rounded out to $1,800 per student. Is that right, Janet? Yeah, $1,800 per student to use for educational materials, resources, experiences.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Darren? No, we're at Lana. Yeah, okay. Try to keep this as quick as you can.
Hi, my name is Lana Forrest. I have my master's degree in education and over 13 years of experience teaching. I was at a high performing charter school from 2018 to 2019. My classroom placed in the 90th percentile. We did really well, but due to health reasons, I had to step back for one of my children was not doing well health-wise. And so I had to step back. And I sent my kids to the school that I was working at that time. And when I got their test results, they were not doing well. And so it was devastating to me that my own children were not performing well in the education system that I had a really high performing class of. So that's when I started looking at other opportunities for my kids. So I started working for ILA in 2020. And at that time, I saw what the kids that were working at home were doing. They were doing these amazing projects. They were exploring the world. They were learning through hands-on experiences, and I got to coach them. And so it was amazing to see that partnership between the parents and the teachers. It was unlike anything I had seen before then. So I became really passionate about it. I worked with the kids. I had a few that were underperforming, and I met with them weekly and was able to teach them different reading skills and things of that nature. So we went from not being able to read or know all of their letters and sounds to we were reading small books together. So after doing that year, I decided to enroll my own kids. So now all 4 of them are a part of ILA, and they're all scoring above grade level. And so because of that, I just think it's a wonderful thing. One of the challenges a public teacher faces is meeting every student where they are, so they're not left behind. ILA is different. Parent educators can tailor learning to meet every student at their instructional level, and ILA provides licensed teachers to support them for the best possible outcome. It is a valuable program. If it were not available, my family would homeschool our children as they are happier, prospering in their education, and have many opportunities that otherwise would not be available to them. However, we would lose our support from the program and the community and opportunities it provides. Thank you again for listening to my journey and why I think ILA is a wonderful program to support.
Thank you. Looks like Aaliyah Southfield and Kristen Hammer. We have about 3 minutes. You're good? And so are you Aaliyah? Kristen? Aaliyah, would you like to come up, please?
My name is Aaliyah Southfield, and I'm here representing my family who has been a part of this school for 4 years now. 5 years ago, my son, who at the time was in kindergarten, began suffering with migraines at school due to the stress and noise in the classroom. And shortly after this, it was 2020, pandemic hit, and he began learning at home due to the school closures. For first grade, we tried West Ada's virtual schoolhouse, but this wasn't a good fit for him either. He's got migraines, so staring at that computer screen on a Zoom meeting with teacher all day was not a good fit for him. And so at the beginning of second grade, he went to school. After a few weeks, he was struggling with his migraines, spending most of the time in the nurse's office or dealing with bullies on the playground. So we began to homeschool him. After 6 months of homeschooling, we realized, through some connections with friends, we found ILA, and we enrolled in this program. I was excited to have the support of the public school system while being able to help my son through his struggles. And we were happy to, I have 3 kids in the program, and, and lost my spot. And another that will join in kindergarten next year. We love the support and accountability, resources, field trips, funding, and friendship that this school provides. This school is very unique and fills a big need in Idaho education. Without the school, we would continue to educate our children at home, but they would miss out on the different opportunities that are provided by the school. I love that they are able to participate in state-required testing. This gives me an opportunity to see how they compare to their peers. It helps us set goals to improve areas where they might struggle.
Can we get you to wrap it up for us, please?
When my son initially came home, he was scoring poorly. By now, he's caught up. He's above grade level in most of his subjects. So by educating my children at home, we're able to follow their passions and provide a more well-educated.
Thanks.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Thane, would you come up, please? I think to be fair to you, if you wouldn't mind, in committee, if you would be okay if we postponed and had you come back another time to continue this? Sure.
Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman.
Senator.
Senator Thane, if we're already doing this and it's as successful as it sounds like it is, why do we need a bill?
Senator Thane.
That's a good question, Senator Zito. So what I answered previously, there's tends to be a little bit of creeping regulation, and we want to make sure that the parents still have the flexibility and they don't get regulated so that they can't choose the curriculum they want, for example, is one of the big issues.
Thank you. Committee, I would also bring to your attention that there is legislation in play that will dramatically affect this particular model. And I think it's important for us to understand that as we go forward. We haven't seen it yet, but it's around. So having said that, Senator Thane, would you be okay if we rescheduled you, had you come back, and we may add some more to this discussion to help us understand where you're at?
That'd be fine.
Okay, committee, I'm hearing some nods and thanks. With that, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move to hold Senate Bill 106, or excuse me, hold Senate Bill 1608, subject to call of the chair.
It's been moved and seconded. We hold it subject to call of the chair. Any further discussion? Senator Zito.
So does that mean that we will hear about this more?
Yes.
This doesn't die, it doesn't die, right?
We will hear more.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay. With that, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries and we're adjourned.